This is a good one. I like this story. Okay. I'm channeling David. Okay. Okay. So once, long ago, there was the Great Spirit, and it looked down upon the people of the land and saw that they were awful and bad, and he was displeased with them, and so he caused a famine to be placed upon the land. Nothing would grow, and the people were starving. And the people looked up at the Great Spirit and said, Great Spirit, why? What the heck, dude? Oh, why are you punishing us? Why this famine? We're hungry. And the Great Spirit looked down upon the Comanche people. That's right, they were Comanche people. Looked down upon the Comanche people and said, I am displeased with you. You've been terrible, thoughtless, unkind people. You've brought this upon yourself. And the Comanche people were heartbroken and they were so upset. Great Spirit, what can we do to get back into your good graces? What can we do to make this famine go away so that we don't die? And the Great Spirit said, offer me up a sacrifice. Show me that you're willing to sacrifice and become better people so that this famine will go away. And the people looked at each other and talked to each other, and there was one young man. He came up and he said, well, I have a bow. This is brand new and it's the best bow ever. I can sacrifice that. And the other people were like, no, that's a terrible sacrifice. I've got this leather. It is choice leather. It'd make a great sacrifice. And the other people were like, no, that's a horrible sacrifice. It's garbage leather. And they kept arguing with each other back and forth on what would be a good sacrifice and what would be appropriate enough to appease the Great Spirit, to bring back the rain so the famines would stop. And they were arguing back and forth. And there was one little girl in the village. Her family had already passed away because of the famine. She'd lost her mom and her dad and her grandmother. And she was all alone. And she had nothing left. She had no possessions whatsoever except one thing. And it was a little doll. It was a little doll that had been sewn together by the hides that her mother had prepared. And in its little head was a little blue feather that her father had found. And it was strung together. It was clothed with clothing that her grandmother had stitched together. It was a beautiful, beautiful little doll, or at least it was to her. She loved it dearly. But she thought about it, and she thought about the words of the Great Spirit. And she came to the conclusion that her doll would be an appropriate sacrifice. I've got children yelling in the background. Her doll would be an appropriate sacrifice. And so she went up to the hill. There was a hill that she climbed up to, and she built a little fire at the top of this hill. And as she got the fire going, she called out to the Great Spirit and said, Great Spirit, please accept my sacrifice and save my people. And she took the doll and she threw it into the fire. And the doll burned, and as it burned, the Great Spirit looked down upon the sacrifice and upon the girl and said, yes, this is a sacrifice that I can accept. And he opened up his heart and let the rains fall from the sky. And as the rains fell from the sky, the Comanche people heard it, and they came out of their dwellings, and they felt the rain fall on their faces, and they danced and sang and were so happy the famine was ended. There would be no more drought and no more starvation. And as they danced about and were celebrating the rains, they looked up at the hill and they saw the little girl. They recognized who she was. They saw the fire was still there and the smoke. And they put together and they realized what she had done. That she had sacrificed that most precious of her possessions for them so that they would not starve and die. And this little girl had a name. She was called the girl who stands alone, because she was a loner and she had no family. But as seeing her sacrifice for them, they changed her name to one who loves the people. Girl who loves the people. And the Great Spirit was so moved by her sacrifice, not only did he open up his heart to let the rains fall, but he created a flower to grow on the hill where she made her sacrifice. And that flower is still there today. It is called the bluebonnet. And that's the end of the story. Was that a good story?
Mm-hmm.